Hi, everyone. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Group. It's Monday, so it's the Monday main event. We get together and talk about all kinds of things real estate. Wayne Hillier in support, as always, running the show, and always lots of pithy comments to make, which is important.
What was that? Pithy?
Pithy.
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 Pithy. Pithy. Concise and forcefully expressive. That about sums me up. Forcefully expressive.
Forcefully expressive.
All right.
We talk about all things real estate, and we'll focus on creative real estate. We have experts on to talk to us about foreclosures and taxes and insurance and financing and all kinds of things where it's important for us to have an expert view. My wife Donna and I do focus workshops where we teach people about creative real estate. The last one being May 7th and 8th in Calgary, the Rapid Cash event. Nothing like rapid cash instead of slow cash. I hate that slow cash. Rapid cash is good, though.
Love me the rapid stuff.
Love me the rapid. And we have another smaller focus workshop, but the very popular AFS, or Agreement for Sale, focus workshop coming up on September 24th in Edmonton. So Donna's been telling people about that. We're all looking forward to it. A full day where we get to talk about agreements for sale in depth. And that's one of the things that's tougher in the Rapid Cash event, where we talk about 5 or 6 creative strategies over 2 full days, is, you don't devote a full day to each one. Not that we maybe could, but certainly we could for agreements for sale. And so that's September 24th. So think about that as we move into what's going on. I was just asking Wayne what he did for Canada Day. And I think this is a quote. He said, "I randomly went to Calgary and bought a property."
Rapid cash, my friend. Rapid cash.
Rapid cash. Rapid cash. So and people say, what are you grateful for on Canada Day? And I guess that's an illustration of what I don't think people ever think about here in Canada, is that we have, freedom of ownership of property, freedom of property. There's many places in the world where, number one, people can never afford to buy a property. And I guess places in Canada like that too, but can't afford to buy a property. You're never sure of what you're getting when you buy a property. There's, competing claims for properties. There's a huge amount of corruption around properties. Properties are taxed to the max. So you have to pay lots more for various different reasons than just to buy a property. So here in Canada, I'm grateful that we have the ability to relatively easily and quickly go and buy a property. So as a real estate lawyer, I'm grateful for that.
Me too.
Just thought I'd throw that in there. All right.
Yeah, we got a pretty good. And you know what? I'll even extend that a little bit more. Alberta, right? How about Alberta and the no land transfer tax and the favorable, landlording laws, and not favorable, but fair. I always like to say it's not favorable to the landlord. Trust me, it's fair. I think Alberta's pretty great, and the fact that I was, able just to go jump into a car and go drive 3 hours and go buy a property, it was pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
and I'm sure that folks, Wayne is an experienced creative investor. When he buys properties, he's buying them because he thinks the terms are, favorable for him. So there are deals to be had in Alberta, along with no land transfer tax and fair landlording rules, which I guess, Wayne, leads into what we're talking about today. It's a carry on from last week when we talked about mortgages and enforcing mortgages and what happens if you're in trouble on your mortgage. We had a conversation around that. And one of the things that came out was that we have a different approach here in Alberta. So just to review a little bit of what we did last week, we had some basic scenarios that I'm going to go over before we get into more scenarios this week. And the first scenario was someone who bought a property at the height of the boom. They put up 25% deposit on the property. And now at the time this example came up, values had dropped, and the property couldn't be rented for enough to pay the mortgage. And so they couldn't sell the property. I mean, it was just bad at the time when this client talked to me about their situation. Can't rent for enough to pay the mortgage. Nobody wants to buy. And this guy says, I've heard you can just walk away from a property in Alberta and the lender can't come after you personally.
Mm-hmm.
That was a true or false question. Can a lender come after you in Alberta if they take your house, sell the property, foreclose on the mortgage and don't get enough to pay themselves? They foreclose on you, they sell the house for, $350 and the mortgage is $375. So they can't pay themselves back. It's called the deficiency. Can they come after you for the deficiency? And the answer to that true and false question was, it's true. The bank cannot come after you for the deficiency in Alberta if you've purchased a property in your personal name and if it's a conventional mortgage, one of those mortgages where you got to put at least 20% down, where CMHC is not involved.
Right.
So that Alberta advantage is strictly for Alberta. Strictly for Alberta. Saskatchewan have some minor examples of it that more relate to farms, I think. But any place else in the country, if you default on your mortgage and the bank forecloses and they sell the property, they don't get enough to pay themselves back. You are personally responsible for that deficiency, but not in Alberta. So we had a few people going on that one when we were asked that, if that question was true or false. I think we were sort of half and half on either side. So obviously that wasn't something that's really well known.
Yeah, well, I didn't know. It was news to me. Well, don't think you're off the hook, though. I mean, your credit is done for a very long time. Okay, I just don't want anyone to run away and think, "Oh, this is real estate investing is perfect in Alberta. Even if I mess up, I can just walk away." No.
Yes, well, that was another one of the questions. Because somebody said that they'd heard they could do that. They had that conventional mortgage. They'd put down 20% and they, heard they could walk away because they wouldn't be liable for the deficiency. And they thought that was a good solution to their credit problems. So, they're not going to come after you for the deficiency, but your credit, if you get foreclosed on, your credit is ruined. I'm telling you. I mean, I think Sean said last week that where after a period of time, I think it might be maybe 7 years after the foreclosure is finished, different lenders will look at you. But I think he said an A bank, that would be the TD, RBC, CIBC banks. Those banks will never look at you. So not only are you not going to be able to do anything credit-wise for maybe 7 years or anything serious credit-wise, anybody who does grant you credit will be what they call a B lender or maybe a private lender. I like to call those private lenders high sweat lenders because high sweat. Wayne, I hear you got a high sweat loan to buy that fix and flip property. Yeah, Barry, but it was worthwhile because the numbers worked out better than a joint venture.
Yeah.
So, if you're foreclosed upon, maybe they don't get you for the deficiency, but don't try and do anything else where you need to borrow money in any kind of serious way for a while. So that was number 2, or that was one of the ones we talked about.
And it's not like there's not options, right? There's not like there's not options. I mean, there's this really cool course that's your workshop that you're teaching on September 24th. That is a great solution to that, where you can help people out of those problems before it reaches that.
I should be thinking of that as we do this. I mean, we teach focus workshops, Don and I, and Wayne, of course, is a big part of that. And we want people to attend, but it should be me saying, and by the way, folks, did you know, if you understand how an agreement for sale works, there's a chance you can help this person who's in trouble with their mortgage and turn it into a win-win where they don't lose their credit and you get a property for little or no money down. Huh. Why don't I think of those things? It's because I'm not very much of a marketer, I guess. Don and I aren't really big marketers, but I should be thinking. Thanks for pointing that out, Wayne.
I'm an entrepreneur. I hear problems. I offer solutions. It's problem solutions.
No, and that's what successful investors do, isn't it? Successful creative investors understand problems, and then because they provide solutions. They provide creative solutions when they hear about problems because they understand how those creative solutions work, and that's what our focus workshops do. All right. Another example we looked at was a different client had one of those CMHC or National Housing Act mortgages that only put up 5% for their deposit instead of 20% or 25%. And they were also wondering what might happen if they had to walk away. And folks, there's lots more people in this category. If you've only put up 5% on a property, I mean, if the market twitches 5%, then you have no equity in your house. And if you have to sell it and you talk to your realtor and he goes, yeah, we can sell your house. There's no money in it. You have no money. You're not getting any money out of this. And by the way, my commission is $17,000, and I think your payout penalty on your mortgage is about $13,000. So yeah, you can write a check for $30,000 to sell your home, which, again, if you understood agreements for sale or other creative strategies, you might have a solution to this person.
Yeah.
But his question again was, if I walk away from this property and the bank sells it, and then there's a deficiency, which there very likely will be, can the bank come after me for the deficiency? And the answer in this case is yes. The reason the bank can come after this person is because they only put up 5% for their deposit, and therefore they got a National Housing Act / CMHC insurance, and that's federal legislation, and federal legislation overrides the Alberta Advantage legislation that we talked about in our first example. So that the Alberta Advantage is only for the conventional mortgage, the 20% or more down mortgages. Once you're into the CMHC mortgages, then you are fully responsible for the debt all the time. So you got to be a little more careful with those. But you know what's interesting, Wayne? Now you've got me going on how this relates to AFS. You know, in the days when people could assume mortgages, there in the last one of the last recessions, there were lots and lots and lots of properties where someone like you would bang on someone's door and say, you know what, I can take over your mortgage. I can assume your mortgage instead of giving them the AFS solution. Yeah. I can take over your mortgage, and this is what I can do, and all the maintenance on the property, etc. And the sellers had the same exposure that I'm talking about right now, that if our AFS buyer went bad, the seller was still responsible. The seller was still responsible. And that did not deter sellers one bit. Even if somebody said to them, don't do that. Don't you know that if this guy doesn't do a good job, you're always responsible? Don't do it. People go, guess what well, fill in the blanks, Wayne. You're the hard-pressed homeowner. Somebody like me comes along and offers a solution to you. Everybody is saying, don't do it. And what do you say to the naysayers?
You know what? I just want out. I just need out. I'm done.
Yeah. And nobody else is helping me.
No one else is helping me. That's the other thing. I got no other options. What are my options right now? Right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. So the reason that creative strategies work when you play for win-win the way we teach is because, as Wayne is such a big fan of telling us, creating trust makes deals go. And so somebody who is advised left, right, and center never to do the deal with you will do the deal if they trust you. So
100%.
Next up, bought a property in my real estate holding corporation, put up 20%. And this person also has to bail out. The property isn't working, but they bought in their corporation and they put up 20%, and they've heard they're protected by that Alberta Advantage, the Law of Property Act. The answer to that one is they are not protected. That Alberta Advantage only protects you if you've purchased in your personal name, not if you bought in the corporate name. So,
Okay.
So that is that one. And now we're moving on. Donna, you telling me to move on here and get going? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a little bit.
She cracks the whip, I'm telling you. I'm lollygagging around
Okay. Go.
to use that word for the second time today. But it's a good word. Do you know when I was on I was on a trip on the Nahanni River with no less than Raymond Aaron, the great real estate guru, some years ago. We're in those big Voyager canoes, the ones that they're made of plastic and they bolt up in about 3 or 4 sections. They can haul like a dozen people or 2 tons of cargo. Anyway, Raymond and I are in one of these Voyager canoes and we're going down the Nahanni. And one night around the campfire, other people going, "Oh, look, the lily dippers have arrived." The lily dippers. And Raymond and I are looking around. They're looking at us. We were the lily dippers because we sort of dangled the paddle in the water, talked a while, dangled it on the other side.
That's good.
We weren't much on the paddle. And it was a lot of fun. The Nahanni is beautiful.
That's awesome.
All right, let's look at some different ones. Oh, there's one more here. I lent money from my RRSP on a second mortgage, and now my borrower is in default, not paying the mortgage. I'm concerned if my trustee, Olympia Trust, I'm not sure if my trustee, Olympia Trust, will start a foreclosure auction on my behalf and protect my interest. True or false? And Olympia will not start the foreclosure for you. Folks, if you lend money from your RRSP and your borrower goes into default, Olympia might tell you they're not getting payments, but it's up to you to foreclose. So that's why you do good underwriting when you lend, so that if you foreclose, you'll still have all your money safe at the end of the day. Okay.
I think that's still a pretty touchy subject for a lot of people in Canada right now.
Mm-hmm. What's that part, Wayne?
A certain organization that started defaulting on payments.
Yes.
About 6 months ago.
Yes, the Saskatchewan fiasco, without naming names. It's huge, it's ongoing, it's multi-millions of dollars, and it's just crushing for a lot of people. So
yeah,
that's part of what we say is you have to accomplish diligence in any transaction. And if you're lending money from your RRSP or otherwise, you should be calling up a guy like Sean Impey to say, "Sean, I'm proposing to lend money. I have no idea about being a lender, and I need someone to, as they say, underwrite the loan for me." That's what mortgage brokers and underwriters do, is they look at the borrower and decide whether they are a worthwhile credit candidate. Are they going to be able to pay? Will they pay? And if you're thinking of lending money and you know nothing about it, contact a guy like Sean. Pay him his very reasonable fee to do the underwriting for you, and get some certainty on whether you think you're going to collect down the line. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay, Donna, we're going. So
Donna's got it up here. Do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, pop up one so I can see which question I'm doing.
Number one.
Number one. All right. Okay. So yeah, this is a situation where you as the lender or you as a seller took a VTB, a vendor take back mortgage, back when you sold the property. Title went in the buyer's name. Now the buyer has defaulted. And so in this vendor take back case, there was a first mortgage on the property, and you're not worried because the first mortgage lender will sort out your defaulting second mortgage. True or false?
Boy, this stuff is advanced. You're going into some deep detail these last 2 weeks. I like it. I like it. If guys rewatch these, okay, this is good information. I have a good idea, but it's general.
Well, while people are thinking about that, I see Sean's made a note that in the situation we're talking about, fees are paid by the borrowers. So
yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah,
I was thinking more of a consult, but I guess if it's a consult and you say, Sean, I'm thinking of lending to this person, Sean will say, "Great, there's a fee to analyze. Here it is. Get your borrower to pay, and then we'll check them out." So that's even better. Don't do it on your own. Get a pro like Sean to help you.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, guys, true or false? True or false?
Come on.
In the comments. Come on.
I'm going to have a glass of water. A drink of water.
The buyer has defaulted. You are in
Second
position. You offered a second position, vendor take back mortgage. The buyer, owner on title, also has a first position mortgage.
And both, I didn't say that before, but part of the background is both of the loans are in default. The first mortgage and the second mortgage are in default. Well, the answer is false. The first mortgage lender will not sort it out for you.
True. Yeah.
Well,
it's true that that's false. Yes.
First mortgage, the first mortgagee will start foreclosing on his mortgage, and if he carries on right through and finishes, the final result of the first mortgagee's foreclosure action is you, second mortgage lender, will get wiped off the title. So the first mortgage lender will not be protecting you. You have to consult your own lawyer and see what you can do about protecting yourself. So that's false.
Not to overcomplicate it, but may I ask, what if the first position mortgage is not in default?
Then if the first mortgage position is not in default, it's very unlikely that the first mortgage lender will do anything. Their mortgage probably allows them to maybe to start a foreclosure action because nothing can be in default against that title. But the better, safer, and probably it's going to happen answer is if the first is not in default, they won't do anything. They will just wait for you to do something.
Right.
So really, what you have to do, second mortgage lender, is you have to start a foreclosure action. And then you're talking about taking over the first lender's position and. So difficult, very difficult. Got to be careful when you're a second mortgage lender.
In the order that you did them.
Okay, and next one, Donna, you're popping another one up for me. Donna's got this all organized. Golly, as always.
Yeah.
How come it's not working? Says Donna. She's organized, but technology is defeating her even as we speak. Dang it. That's fine. Well, I can carry on.
Okay, no, I got it here.
You got it here? All right. Looks like it's popping up.
Oh, we got it.
There we are. All right. People unhappy with the results they're getting from mutual funds in their RRSP. I've got lots of equities in my properties. They're going to give me second mortgages. Loan to value will never go higher than 95%, and I'll pay them 6%. That's a 6% interest rate on the mortgages. This is a good, safe investment, true or false. And folks, when we're saying this, and when we're talking about somebody who's got a first mortgage and they're planning on a second, that doesn't show up as often as it used to because it just doesn't. But nevertheless, for the sake of our example, the plan is that these folks will borrow. The loan to value ratio will never go higher than 95%. I will pay them 6% on their investment. This is a good, safe investment. True or false? Answer false. It's not a good, safe investment. False. Looks like false is the, let's go with those two. and that's correct. It's not a good, safe investment. Folks, there's a reason why if you're going to a bank and wanting a loan, they'll say to you, would you like a conventional mortgage where you have to put up at least 20%? Or are you looking for a CMHC mortgage where you can put up 5%? Banks are not allowed to lend on their own without CMHC insurance unless the borrower puts up at least 20%, at least 20%. And why is that? Because experience has shown that a lender needs that 20% cushion in order to be making a relatively safe loan.
Right.
Usually if loans go bad, except in very depressed market conditions, that 20% equity will protect the lender who can start a foreclosure and get the property sold and get their money back before the value of the property is less than the value of their mortgage. But if people don't have at least 20%, then banks by law absolutely have to make the borrower get CMHC insurance so that if the loan goes bad, CMHC pays the bank for any losses that they suffer. That's what CMHC insurance is for. It's to protect banks from losing any money. It's nothing to do with you except to let you get a property with less than 20% down.
Right.
So yeah, if Royal Bank of Canada, the biggest bank in the country, agrees that it is important for them to have at least 20% down to protect themselves, why would you, who know nothing about lending, allow people to put up 5%? And the second part of this is, so Wayne, if you were out borrowing and you wanted to get a second mortgage on one of your properties and you found one of those high sweat lenders, and would they firstly entertain a loan where there was only now 5% equity in the property?
Would they entertain it?
Yeah, would they?
Well, it's me, so yeah.
Sorry, folks. Sorry, I forgot to add that in. If it was Wayne, of course they do it.
I have a bit of a track record, and
Yeah.
and I've built a lot of trust. And so I'm just being honest. But historically, for most individuals, no, they want to see a little bit of equity.
I want to see a little more equity. I mean, some lenders will only go 85% or sometimes up to 90%.
Mhm.
And almost always, if you're doing a second mortgage in that category, your interest rate would be more than 6%.
Yes.
It could be more than 6. You're likely to be in the 10 plus range.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a good, safe investment for a number of different reasons. Terrible investment, likely. All right, what's next up here? Let me have a look.
Oh, I already
Donna?
put it in.
Has already
You got
popped
her.
in. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into it. My husband took out a commercial loan for his business. A house in my name alone, says the wife. The bank asked me to grant the mortgage to secure his loan. Looks like the bank wasn't happy with the security that the husband could offer for his commercial loan for his business. Say to the wife, you know what? We need you to give us a mortgage on the house just in case. Now my husband has defaulted on the loan and the bank has commenced foreclosure on the house. We will lose our home. True or false? In other words, can the foreclosure go ahead and can the bank take it back?
Put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments. True or false? This is a little bit trickier. This is a little bit tricky.
Does everybody understand what's going on with this? If you guys don't, just ask questions in the comments as well. We can dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so Wayne's got a business of renovating houses and he needs money to operate. And so he says to the bank, I'm doing this big time. I want to borrow a whole bunch of money. And they give him a commercial loan.
Yeah.
Bank says to Gabby, Wayne's a good guy and he's pretty good at it. And he's got a pretty good track record. And of course, everybody trusts him except us. And so, Gabby, you're going to have to sign away that beautiful home of yours in order to be sure that if Wayne's business fails, we can come after you and get ourselves paid back. So
we got a bunch of trues and one false.
True. Yeah. Well.
Another true. True. False.
In this case, there's going to be an argument. This is an it depends answer.
Okay.
The wife's argument for not losing the home would be that the mortgage was in the nature of a guarantee, in the nature of a personal guarantee. So she was, in some senses, guaranteeing that her husband would pay. And in Alberta, we have, I guess, another peculiarity with Alberta law. We've got something called the Guarantees Acknowledgement Act, where if somebody guarantees a loan, the provisions of the Guarantees Acknowledgement Act have to be followed in order for the guarantee to be enforceable. So the wife's argument would be that, you know what? It's not just a mortgage. I guaranteed his loan, and the mortgage was collateral security for my guarantee. The Guarantees Acknowledgement Act wasn't followed, and therefore the mortgage is unenforceable. So I get to keep my home. And lucky for me, I'm divorcing that bastard. Can't keep the business going.
Language.
Sorry, I shouldn't say things like that. So There would
I
be a
actually want you to know that Gabby and I have been happily married.
yes.
We have a 10-year anniversary coming up this Wednesday.
Oh,
You
wow.
do. Congratulations.
Okay.
That's a big deal. 10 years. Wow.
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years.
Well, I think you're safe for the
Work
moment.
in my ass.
Yeah. Safe
You
for
hear
the-
that?
All right, so folks, this is an it depends one. The wife would have to make the argument and win the argument that the mortgage was collateral security for her personal guarantee. The requirements around a personal guarantee weren't followed, therefore the mortgage is not enforceable. That's not by any means a for sure win for her. So that's an it depends answer. That one would end up in court for sure.
Mm.
All right. Moving along, Donna, what do we have for another one?
I'll put it in right now.
Putting it in right now.
Oh, there was a question about
Oh, a question? Was
businesses. Not directly, but maybe now is a good time since you just talked business stuff.
Okay, well, I don't.
Was it about buying in a corporation?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Why do people buy in a corporation? What are the pros and cons to doing this? Wasn't
my
sure
goodness.
whether that was on track with today or not, but
That really, I'd love to answer that question. And just so you know, that is kind of the most asked question in real estate is really, should I incorporate?
yeah.
What are the pros and cons? People buy in corporations for lots of different reasons. They buy to limit their liability. They buy for tax reasons. They buy for financial planning reasons. They buy so that they can, if they have other successful businesses and corporations properly set up, you can move money around within corporate setups in order to use it to purchase property and not pay tax on it. If you take money out of your corporation, put it in your own jeans personally, then your corporation, or you have to pay tax on the money you get. The corporation has to pay tax. But if you do it within corporations, you have a chance at least at organizing your affairs so you can use the corporate money without paying the tax. Those are all reasons why people do things. On the con side, it's expensive to set up corporations and maintain them. The tax advantages aren't near as important as lots of people think. The CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, is very good about plugging loopholes and trying to make sure that what people do personally tax-wise is the same as what they do corporately. So overall, the short answer to this question is you got to talk to your accountant. Tell them what your plans are. They know who you are. You talk short, medium, long-term planning, and then you and your accountant figure out whether for your circumstances it makes sense for you to buy.
And a lawyer as well, right?
And a lawyer. Yes, lawyers work with accountants the accountant usually figures out whether it makes financial and tax sense. And then we talk about the liability side and help with the actual structure. And one other really important question there is you have to know how, if you're looking to get financing for properties in a corporation, that's different than doing personally. Again, you talk to a smart guy like Sean Impey, mortgage broker, for your circumstances, discover whether borrowing corporately made sense. All right.
But it's not the same for everyone. It's different for everyone. You have to do your own research, and you got to tell them what your plan is long term, and they'll tell you whether it's worth it or not.
Yeah, they got to know what your short, medium, and long-term plans are. If you say, I'm going to buy 3 houses, that's all I'm ever going to do. I'm going to pay them off, and that's going to be my pension income when they're clear title houses. Well, most accountants would probably say, let's not do that. Let's just do it personally, keep it simple. If on the other hand, I had a client come into me, and for his first real estate investment, he was buying 2 high-rise apartments, multi-million-dollar first bit of real estate. Absolutely. I owned his own home and a cottage and another home, but he didn't own any investment real estate. And so for that, for sure, he is going to be buying in a corporation, maybe a couple of corporations. But if you're buying a house or 2 or 3, probably not. And then you're between those 2 things, 3 houses and 2 high rises, The answers are multivarious in between those two scenarios.
Yeah.
All righty. Donna, do we have
Right.
another?
Yeah.
Here we go. I lost my job and the lender started foreclose on my 2 investment properties. Fortunately, there's lots of equity in both properties. The legal paperwork says they can take over the properties immediately. True or false? Can the lender take over those properties immediately? Because it says so in the mortgage. I know, I've read a lot of mortgages, and most of them say that if you go into default, the lender can pop into court, take those puppies away from you right away, even though you've still got lots of equity. Can they do that? True or false? Wayne says, I think that's a no, they can't.
No, I'm saying put it down in the comments.
Comments. Oh, yeah.
This is
It's
kind of a Q&A kind of thing, or like a true or false session. We're curious what you guys think. This is
thinking I can heal the I like spring saying, is your anniversary present an ugly house? That's cute. Not part of the question, but
yeah, Lindsay thinks it's false. Lindsay thinks it's false. What does everybody else think?
They can't take it over right away. That's what Lindsay's saying.
Well, to find immediately, so the your has started to foreclose, and it's like immediately they can take over your property. Do you think so, or is there a process?
Well, there is a process. Certainly, if the lender wants to take action against you, the lender will start their action, usually a foreclosure action, by way of this thing called a statement of claim.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will serve those statement of claim papers on you if you're the homeowner defendant. And then you get 20 days to file a defense, and then you're in court batting it back and forth with the foreclosure lawyer on who can do what to who on what particular day.
Mm-hmm.
False or false? And the answer is it's false. The lender cannot take over the properties right away. Again, it's kind of different than in Ontario and other provinces. So the reason that the lender cannot take over those properties right away is the courts in Alberta and in the West generally, the Prairie provinces particularly, courts have a predilection for protecting homeowners and property owners. In times past, when life was really bad in the Depression, so many people lost their homes to lenders that there was protective legislation put in place. And so if the bank shows up in court and says, this property is in default and we want to take it over right away, we want to get going, start selling it, foreclosing on it, the first question the judge will ask the bank is, how much equity did they have in the property? How much equity did they have in the property? So let's say it's a $300,000 property and there's $75,000 worth of equity, which would not be unheard of. That number, that $75,000 is called the equity of redemption, the equity of redemption. And the judge will look at the bank and say, have we heard from the borrower? Did they file a statement of defense? Bank says, yes, we have heard from them. They've filed a statement of defense, and they're claiming that this is a temporary setback for them, and they have plans to come up with all of their arrears. They're going to be able to pay their 4 payments that are outstanding. They can pay our legal fees, and they think they can do that in 6 months. In a case like that, where the property is worth $300,000, the mortgage is only $225,000, and there's $75,000 worth of equity, that $75,000 equity of redemption will protect the homeowner. The court will say, all right, they think they can do it. We don't know whether that plan will come to fruition or not. Maybe they'll be able to catch up and pay everybody, and maybe they won't be able to. But, Mr. Bank, you are protected. You're protected because there's $75,000 worth of equity. How much are the payments per month? Well, they're $800. So if we give them an extra 6 months times $800 is $4,800. Some legal fees bring it up to, say, $7,500. They have $75,000 worth of equity. In 6 months, if they pay you nothing, you'll be owed another $7,500. And if you sell the property, then you will get every penny back and more. So in this case, the bank cannot immediately take over the property because the homeowner has this big chunk of equity, the equity of redemption, and that equity protects them. The bank will always give a homeowner more time if there's equity there. If the bank is not going to lose, and it's really obvious they're not going to lose, they won't let them plow ahead and move quickly.
You mean the court will? The court or the bank? The bank wants
to. The judge in court will not allow the bank to proceed quickly because there is lots of equity. Now, on the other hand, and I hope I'm not anticipating the next question because I can't remember what the next one is. If the bank shows up in court and says, the purchase price was $300, our mortgage was $250, the value of the property has dropped to $250,000. There is no equity.
Right.
The mortgage is $250. The place is worth $250. If it gets sold, there's still commissions to be made. So the homeowner in this case has no cushion. They have no equity. They have no equity of redemption. And the judge will allow the bank to proceed quickly where there is no equity.
Gotcha.
So that's how
to make sure it doesn't get any worse.
To make sure it doesn't get any worse. Yeah. It's fine to protect the borrower and be sympathetic to the borrower, but the court is supposed to be fair, and it wouldn't be fair to the bank to say, well, they've got the plan to catch up in 6 months. Let's see how they do. Because in this case, 6 months later and $7,500 in missed payments and legal fees later, the homeowner is in no better position, but the bank will now lose a further $7,500 or they'll lose $7,500 if they sell. So
right.
There's a fairness aspect to foreclosures, but as a homeowner, if you have a bit of equity and if you have a really good plan, I think sometimes even if you don't have very much equity, if you have a solid plan to pay, then you can get a judge to stop the foreclosure and wait. So, for instance, in the last example where the house is worth $250 and the mortgage is $250 and there's no equity, if the homeowner comes in and says, you know what, my great uncle just passed away. He left me $500,000 in his will. That will is going through the court process right now. And when it's finished, when the grant of probate is given by one of your brother judges in a different court, I will get $500,000. So I want you to give me time until the probate goes through and I get my $500,000 from my great uncle, and then I'll pay the bank. So if the homeowner showed up with that argument and copies of all of the official documents that showed what he was saying was true, then even though he has no equity, he'd still get time.
Right.
So courts are sympathetic. If you can make an argument, you can usually get time. Donna, what's next?
Part two.
Part two. Oh, part two of this question. I've heard that legal costs of foreclosure could be $20,000. True or false?
Interesting question. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Down in the comments.
I see Neil is in there answering, so making some comments. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, good coaching from Corey here. Yeah. Stay in communication with the bank's lawyers. Don't ignore.
Yeah.
Get email, get some process printing fee savings there. That's all true.
Mm-hmm.
As always, staying in touch and being communicative is usually better than ignoring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you just explained for the last 10, 15 minutes that they're within reason. They'll work with people to help. And now if you're hiding and closing the blinds and locking the doors and not answering emails, I mean, it doesn't look like you're trying. It doesn't look like you're actually trying to resolve this issue. It doesn't look like you have a plan. So, I mean, if you're just ignoring it, I don't want to assume that they would expedite it, but they're certainly not going to give you any extra time or any leniency.
Yeah, and you know, when the foreclosure lawyer is off in front of the judge asking the judge to do something, judges always say, you know, what have we heard from the borrower? What's going on? They want to know what's going on with the borrower. If the bank's lawyer says, you know what, we've tried to serve them personally, we've had our process servers try and find them on social media, we've reached out to any address or phone number or contact point that we have, and we have no communication from them at all. We just don't know where they are or what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, judges can only go so far. They're likely to go, well, okay, if you've tried all that, then they'll give the bank what they want, almost,
Yeah.
Carte blanche. All right. So
we got a true could be from Corey. Someone says it all depends. That must be a lawyer. True with the arrears added in. And Neil says 20K legal on foreclosure seems high from what we've seen.
Yeah, so for our attendee who says true with the arrears added in, so we're not talking about the arrears on the loan. We're just talking about what the foreclosure lawyer would be charging. So there's a little segue, a little sideways. Mortgages are contracts that say in them specifically, if anything ever goes wrong with this mortgage and we, the bank, have to take any kind of legal action, if we have to do anything that costs us money, we are allowed by the terms of the mortgage to collect not only what you owe us because you're missing your payments, but every other cost that we are incurring because of your default and failure to pay. So those would be things like the bank's legal fees, and that's what we're talking about right now, specifically that. Banks don't go out and do the property management, folks. They have property managers that they put in place. Sometimes they have receivers if it's a property that has a bunch of facets to it, and they need a professional called a receiver to run the property for the bank while they're working their way through the foreclosure. People don't pay their taxes. They don't pay their condo fees. They stop paying their home insurance costs, and the bank will pay all of those in order to preserve their security and take all of those into account when it's time to ask the judge for an order saying how much money they're going to get. So sometimes equity gets eroded more quickly than you think. The homeowner's thinking, gee, my payment's $800 a month. 6 months, that's $4,800. Well, if there's a receiver and or a property manager, and if you're not paying your condo fees, your taxes, and your insurance, and in which case you probably would not have condo fees, it can mount up a lot more quickly. So the answer here is for a straightforward foreclosure, for just the legal fees, it's false. The legal fees would not be up around the $20,000 mark if it was a straightforward foreclosure. Foreclosures they go on all the time by the bucket load. There is a really well understood cut and dried procedure for how they proceed, for how they get sold, for how the parties interact for each other, and for what the bank gets to charge. They can't necessarily charge for every penny of the time that the lawyer puts in. There's a range of fees and a range of activity that the court will say is included in the foreclosure lawyer's fees. And so that's one of the reasons why, if you're working on foreclosure, sometimes it's difficult to get answers out of the foreclosure lawyer. If you're a buyer and you're looking to help somebody with their foreclosure, maybe buy it from them, take it out of foreclosure, sometimes it's difficult to get information from the foreclosing lawyer because Many times they answer those questions, and potential buyers want lots of info, and the foreclosure lawyer can spend a whole whack of time, or his staff can spend a whole whack of time answering questions and providing information. And then the buyer doesn't work out for them. The lawyer has recorded all this time. He's bumped his standard bill up by another $1,000, and then he goes to get it paid, and the court says, okay, well, hold on here. This is $1,000 more than normal. What's going on? And so the foreclosing lawyer says, well, it was this, and this. And the court might say, sorry, you're out of the range that we normally have. That's kind of on you. So sometimes they just don't answer questions, or they're a little reticent because they're not going to get paid.
Right.
So I think a normal foreclosure where the bank just gets to file their paperwork, nobody answers, it kind of rolls its way through without too much backing and forthing, is probably in the $3,500 to $5,000 range. Now it could get to $20,000 easily if there's a fight, if there's a real battle, if the buyer is challenging the validity of the documentation. He goes, that wasn't me, I didn't sign that mortgage, or you forgot that's very important clause. It has to be in all mortgages. Any kind of legal argument that's got any kind of room to be made, you can ratchet up the legal fees quickly. So a contested foreclosure could get itself up to $20,000 real quick, and could be more if the battle went on for any length of time. All right.
Neil says, we have found that the best way to get info is to ask the lawyer to sign a letter authorizing us to speak to the bank's lawyers.
Get the owner to sign that letter authorizing is a good way to do things.
Yeah.
And Corey Vance is kind of saying the same thing, release from the owner. There's the letter. Get some basic info. I agree that certainly does help. It's another kind of version of the cooperative way that we like to go at things. What you're doing is showing that you as a person inquiring are not just some random guy that's the typical random guy bothering the bank and the bank's lawyers. So I think it does help. It's all part of showing that you're kind of working together. Mm-hmm. And Donna, do we have one more?
Yes.
We do have one more.
All right.
Oh, okay. So this is a bit different than a foreclosure, but it's kind of in there. So our person asking the question here bought their first investment property 2 weeks after closing. So obviously they bought their property a few years ago when Land Titles was registering things quicker than the 3.5 months they're taking right now. Anyway, bought the first investment property 2 weeks after closing. A very official document on pink legal size paper shows up at my mailing address. The document was a caveat. And it said my lender was forbidding the registration of anything against the title. My know-it-all brother says this is normal. True or false? So is it normal for a lender to send this thing called the caveat forbidding registration of anything else against the title? True or false? Is it normal? True or false?
True or false?
True or false?
True or false?
True or false? So we'll give a little more background here, a touch more background. When you're buying an investment property, what security does the bank take? They always take a mortgage, usually a collateral mortgage, and they almost always take an assignment of rents. That's the document that allows them to go to your tenant if you're collecting rent and not making the mortgage payment, and go to your tenant and say, quit paying that damn Wayne. I'm telling you, pay us. Don't give him the rent, give us the rent money, and we'll make the mortgage payment with it. So that's what the caveat would be about. It's common security for a investment mortgage. So is it normal that the bank would send this thing called the caveat?
You got no answers whatsoever. Come on, people. Come on. Let's see who's smart.
So, Donna, what are we doing after the show? Well, people are figuring out what the answer is. Nice. Do you want to go sit in the backyard? We could.
Yep.
Donna says, yeah, let's do that. Maybe get the fire going, roast a smoky.
Ooh.
Chili dog. Yeah. Oh, we got chili. We could have chili dogs. Yeah.
Damn.
Dan says,
You know that's one of my favorite meals, chili dogs.
is it?
I don't
Oh,
know.
whenever Gabby makes chili, I'm like, you bought hot dogs, right? I mean, come on, right?
Well, the answer is it's true. It's very common in this circumstance where we're talking about an assignment of rents. An assignment of rents is one of those documents that can't be registered on its own. So if you take a mortgage, if a mortgage is security, that mortgage can be registered against the title as a mortgage. If you sign an encroachment agreement, that gets registered usually as an encroachment agreement. But if you have an option to buy a piece of property, if you have an interest in a property because you're a buyer with a signed offer to purchase, if you are a beneficial owner because you've purchased by way of an agreement for sale, none of those things can be registered on their own like a mortgage. So if you are the holder of the security and you want it registered against the title, the way you register it is by way of this thing called the caveat. The caveat says, I claim an interest in this property because I fill in the blank, have taken an assignment of rents as security, am a buyer under a purchase contract, am an AFS purchaser under a contract, have an option to purchase this property, have a right of first refusal. So if you have an interest in a property that isn't able to be registered on its own, you register it by way of the caveat, and it almost always, I would say every time, if the bank requires the registration by way of caveat, the land titles office sends a copy of that caveat to the homeowner. So I saw Neil's comment that he may not have seen that one or doesn't see it very much. But in my experience, the land titles rules are that if someone files a caveat, they will send a copy of the caveat to the homeowner's address on the title. So it is a scary document because it is big and it's legal. It's pink. It's 11.5 by 14. Someone's claiming an interest and forbidding you to do something. It is kind of scary, but it's just a standard way of registering whatever interest the person who filed the caveat is claiming. So it's particularly interesting for us as investors because there's often assignments. But the other side of that is if someone files a caveat against one of your properties and you look at it and they say they're claiming an interest under an option agreement, and you go, Bill Jones, option agreement. Let me look at my paperwork. Hell, that option expired 6 months ago. They did have an option. It was only for a month. They didn't exercise the option. The option expired. It's 6 months later. Now they're filing a caveat saying they have an interest because they have an option. Well, thank God I got notice of that because the caveat ties up the title. So as the homeowner, where the person filing the caveat for the expired option does not have an interest, it gives you a chance to take action and punt that caveat off your title because you don't want to. Right. And Wayne, that brings us to the end of our two-part series on mortgages and some of the different, deeper legal aspects of foreclosures and enforcement of mortgages. Yeah, took us two full sessions to go through the basics.
Very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen this covered anywhere else. And I watch a lot of content, and I have watched a lot of content over the years. I have not seen this covered anywhere else. This is really informative.
Well, you know what? I think that's one of the reasons that our focus workshops have, we have good success and people really like them. It's because there's the legal element to them. We teach it from a very practical perspective, and the legal side of it doesn't it's not the whole thing, but it's certainly part of it. And I think, I'm the only lawyer who's in the creative or really the real estate education space. And so I get to talk about it because it's part of what I do and what I know about, and other folks don't have that experience. So yeah, it's another added feature for us and our focus workshops and our focus team. So don't forget about September 24th coming up, folks.
Yes.
That's going to be an all-day event here in Edmonton. It's going to be on a Saturday. It's going to be great food because we always feed everybody. We think it's important to have a good meal when you are, well, actually 2 meals, breakfast and lunch.
Yeah.
And then, we always end up going for some cool libation after the event to rehash the day and do it for another few hours.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that kind of brings us to the end. Any finishing comments from you, Wayne?
I'm just so happy that I was able to attend this and to learn all this information. And again, I'm sorry, as a fly. I'm really looking forward to September as well. I love those focus workshops.
I do too. The day flies along. It's so much fun. It's so good for people. It's really great. Just love it. Anyway, folks, think about coming and hooking up with us on September 24th and do an all-day AFS event. And on that note, Wayne, we're going to head for the backyard, maybe get the fire going, roast a smoky, have a chili dog. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.